Welcome to the Locker Room. This is the 4th episode of this season. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Here I am sitting with Evan Newton, our returning special guest from last week. Thanks again for coming on the show today, Evan.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So mainly we'll be talking about basketball today. It's a hot topic right now in the sports world. Starting off with, as everyone knows, Zion Williamson, the star forward from Duke. Everyone has to know who he is at this point because he is just on every sort of platform we've possibly seen.
Every highlight reel, all the time. The ticker always at the bottom. Yeah.
He is, the light of the world right now.
Yeah.
But he recently got injured, sprained his knee against the other night, in the game the other night against the Tar Heels, as we know, and that makes everyone question, this player with this type of caliber, he shouldn't be playing in college. He should be focusing on his career for the NBA because clearly he's going to make it in the professional league and he's going to hopefully succeed at the level he's playing right now. But it's just okay. The NBA, as they proposed a couple days ago, Adam Silver proposed that now players that are 18 years old can go into the draft, as before it was 19, which would require players like Zion and even RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish on all players on Duke right now that are going to be top 5 draft picks this upcoming draft. They are forced, I won't say forced, but they have to play a year in college because they can't enter the NBA after coming out of high school.
They can develop their game there, and there's a lot of arguments for foreign,
But that makes his question is, do you feel that, how do you feel about that? Do you think the NBA should accept the proposal and go back to the way it was when LeBron came out of high school and went straight to the draft, or is it better for players to go to college first?
Well, I think the most important part of the way it used to be is that it gave players choice and flexibility.
Yeah.
And when the Zion argument comes up, you think of how Duke and you think of Kentucky and you think of these one-and-done teams and you think about how they are built upon that. And back in those days, of course, you still had colleges, and Shaq went to LSU and Michael Jordan went to UNC. So, of course, colleges were still a thing. And it got more popular in later on when the style of the game started changing and it seemed like players could adapt quicker without needing that college. But I think the important thing about the rule here is it gives players the option, because when the discussion came up on Twitter, Trae Young talked about how players like Zion don't need that year. Players will come out hype. They already have. That's why he's going to Duke. Trae Young said he didn't have any stars. He wasn't recruited like that. He barely got in Oklahoma. He had to fight his way there. Players like that need that year. They need that platform. You can't come out of high school like that. If nobody wants you, then you're just going to go sit at home on your couch. You're not going to get anywhere.
You got to go to college to prove something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the flexibility of the way it used to be, you can come out if you want, if you have that hype. And some guys can go to college and flame out, and it ruins their draft stock, and they still have a lot of good potential. And I think that players should have the right to have that choice, whether they feel like they're ready and scouts tell them they're ready, or if they feel like they need that year to raise their platform like Trae Young did. I think that flexibility or that choice is important between players for sure.
What do you feel though? I personally feel that I think it's good for the NBA and it's also good for the NCAA. Because if you propose that and accept this proposal, your players like Zion and RJ Barrett and Ja Morant, who's actually a star right now from Murray State, these players wouldn't need to go to college. They would just go straight to the draft. It sort of makes it more competitive in NCAA, but also at this point, a lot of people don't really know a lot of the star players in college teams because they're there for 1 year and they're gone the next.
Exactly. I think that's key, because you got to think about it is especially here at USC, we knew Scenarius Thorne for a while. He wasn't highly coveted like that, and then he went. But I think with other players around the league, it's hard to lock on to college basketball players because they're just trying their hardest to get out. And I think when you said it's a good thing for NCAA, I don't know as much that it's good, but I think it could change the game because you're going to get players that they go for a reason to be committed to their school and improve their draft stock. They can stay more than 1 year. You can try to attach to your players. Exactly. You're a Duke fan and you're learning new names every year. Same with Kentucky. I feel like that's how
Kansas,
it is. Yeah.
big schools.
Exactly. Those ones where they're just getting the top ones, they know they want to go, but they'll have a good program for a year. And I think that it would kind of change the landscape of the game. And I don't know how drastically, but I think it definitely would.
Yeah, I think it would be great for the NCAA because it would create players, like you said, to be there for more than 1 year. Like you'd have players like sort of, it would kind of create more team chemistry actually. Like when you have the three guys who all go in their freshman year, they're all in the same class. They play each other, not play each other. They play with each other for 4 years. You know,
And they have the chemistry, and you see those runs,
And I think it'd be great seeing those players develop.
You see a lot more of like teams in there too, like new teams that built chemistry because you see the same names in there. I mean, that's always how it's going to be, but like you'll see new ones in there. That's not just powerhouse programs. I feel like
it would definitely make it more, I think, competitive than it already is now.
Absolutely.
But moving on to our next topic, right now, as of last night, the second half of the NBA season kicked off last night after this past All-Star weekend.
Which was a good one. I was going to say All-Star weekend kind of gets some flack. The dunk contest was okay, but that was a pretty good All-Star weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, though, I think it's safe to say there are three main players that are in the run or in the front runner for the MVP this season, which is James Harden, reigning MVP from last year, Paul George, who's actually having a spectacular season right now, and of course Giannis Antetokounmpo, the star player for the Milwaukee Bucks, leading his team to the best record right now in the league. But who do you feel, if it's not any of those three players, you can say anybody else, but who do you think is the MVP right now for this season? Who deserves it most?
And I feel like if you go outside of the conversation, then your pick, it's what you feel versus what could actually happen. It starts to become a fine line because the conversation is the biggest key as to who's in it, is who's going to get it, because you never really see like an outsider or a dark horse. You'll know. So that's why I feel like Paul George is probably my pick, because James Harden is going to get his share. And of course, on paper, he's the most likely winner just because of the stats he puts up and everything like that. But I feel like how Paul George has shaped the culture in OKC, because before, I mean, we saw Russell Westbrook single-handedly carry that team when he won MVP. The whole team was on his back. Like he because it was after you lost star talent, and you just kind of felt that loss there. When they brought Paul George and he committed to that, he said, listen, he had LeBron calling his name in LA, but he said, this is where I want to be. And Russell statistically has had an off year, but I feel like in a sense, usually everybody considers, okay, Russ needs guys around him. But this year, it's kind of flipped. It's been like Paul George has been kind of making Russell Westbrook a better player, better overall than Russ just driving to the basket every time. And they're playing great because they're what, the 2 seed, or where they're 2 or 3?
Right now, they're at the 3 seed.
Okay, I was going to say, I knew they were up there. And that's different for OKC because last year at this time, they're kind of fighting around the bottom. They made their way up later in the season, but there's a different feeling around that team. And I feel like that's like largely contributed to Paul George.
I can't agree with you more, but I think Paul George is a great MVP candidate. The only reason that he's going to get the MVP is if the Oklahoma City Thunder get that number 1 spot. Yeah,
that's good. There's a lot more factors that have to go into it, but I feel like there's a case to be made for it, of course.
Which is why I feel Giannis right now is the MVP candidate, because not only is he leading the Bucks to the best record in the Eastern Conference, he literally has the best record overall in the league. He's better than the Warriors right now. I wouldn't say he, but the Milwaukee Bucks.
The team. So 1 versus 5 might not work out there.
But I mean, when you think about the most valuable player, are they the most valuable player, and will they make that impact where they can change the outcome of their season and possibly their team for the playoffs and so forth? So I think he's a great candidate.
He's really important to him too, and you can tell just because of how much we've seen him grow over the last years. And I also think it's a kind of a strange point that the fact that we. Notice how none of us picked James Harden. Like everybody's kind of like, yeah, James Harden's going to be up there. And of course, you can make cases for James Harden. Of course, that's why he's won it before. It's just you wonder because of all the controversy about his foul calls and how much of those points he really earns. It's always kind of funny how it's I get it, but like of course, there's always more conversations about guys. But this year, it's not a unanimous like kind of thing.
Yeah. Moving on to our next segment, though, we got a couple minutes left, but. Where do you, the other day, LeBron James, being a new member of the Los Angeles Lakers this season, he has apparently said playoff Bron is activated. And we know what that guy can do.
It's a cheesy line, though.
And he even said, he's having to activate this mode earlier than expected, because right now with the win of the Lakers had last night, they actually had a great comeback win against Houston. They are standing at 29-29, so they're at 500 right now and 10th in the Western Conference. And right now, if the playoffs ended today, we wouldn't see LeBron James in the playoffs, which is unheard of in the past generation. But do you feel that LeBron, or let's say playoff Bron mode, will, continue that mode and maybe stretch his team into the Western Conference playoffs this season?
I think it's funny because mode, like, he's a video game, but essentially just the power that LeBron has, it's kind of unreal. It's kind of unrealistic. It's funny because I think that LeBron, everybody's so upset that he's acting like, why isn't he playing like that all season? He's got the right to do that. I mean, as much effort as he put in it, and as much work as he has, he doesn't have all that star talent around him that he used to. So like he's got to put in some extra work. So he kind of had to reserve himself. I can see it. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, you got to understand where he's at. So I think he'll make it work. I mean, there's some teams that are going to fade away down the stretch. So I think that he'll be able to find it. The question is when they get into the playoffs, how far they go. That's a different story. But I think getting there, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. It'll definitely just have to come down to the minutes he's restricted to, or the minutes he's playing, and it's definitely going to have to. He's definitely going to have to get Lonzo Ball back when he comes back and healthy. And once they get that chemistry going, I think they can make a run in the playoffs in the Western Conference. But clearly, we know the Warriors are running that helm right now in the Western Conference.
Big brick wall there they'd run into even if they did make that run.
But actually, it'd be interesting to see LeBron go up against him in the first round against the Warriors.
As opposed to the final stage they're usually on.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today.
Shoot. Well, that's all right.
Thank you for coming on our show today.
Thanks for having me again.
I know we're used to having 2 guests, but hey,
we made good conversation. Right? I feel like we made it work. Yeah,
we definitely did. Well, once again, thanks again for coming on the show, and thank you for everyone joining us this evening. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.